As 2024 comes to a close and we review our last movie of the year, I'm reminded of a better time. A time when, as Americans, nay, the world, would come together to witness humanity pushed to its edge. Be it a towering inferno, earthquake, floods, volcanoes, global freezing, asteroids, alien invasions, hell, even a cruise line could be the site of a horrible disaster. But these threats from outside forces can show us glimpses of who we would want to be or how we might want to act if faced with such perilous situations, right down to questioning the existence of God. Now all we have is CGI and Rose Tico almost single-handedly killing the entire universe because she has a crush on a guy she met 2 seconds ago because of, I don't know, reasons. Come back to us, Gene Hackman. Welcome to Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Half-Ass Movie Podcast, a show where we put together a half-ass theme as an excuse to watch movies. My name is Adam Porterson. Joining me today, he too is a skinny lady in the water, Bruce Leslie.
Hey, that's Shelley Winters, man. Talk about oozing sex appeal. She oozes a lot of things, but one of them is sex appeal.
One of them is definitely sex appeal, right there at the top.
She can hold her breath for over 2 minutes. Come on.
I do enjoy how, like, one of the highlights of a woman's, an elder statesman's career and everything is busting out a locket of, back when I was in high school, I was a damn good swimmer. Okay.
Oh, man, I also, like, there's a difference in the way that scripts are written now, because I just don't see a non-comedy having a lady say, a fat woman like me can't climb a ladder. Like, totally straight. And we're supposed to have that build the tension.
Listen, I am okay with that, because today we would just be like, I can do anything, and then she would fall down to her death.
No, today she would be the action hero.
That's true. Melissa McCarthy would be the one who would lead everybody to the promised land in this movie.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying it's a different time.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely a different time. Well, welcome back, everybody. The year's almost at the end here, man, so we got to talk about it. This is Irwin Allan's big disaster movie that kind of kicked it off for him. He'd done plenty of other things before this one, but you'd lead into all the other stuff. But the Poseidon Adventure from 1972. We go into, like, the towering inferno and stuff after this, but it was just like, this was kind of like the beginning template in a lot of ways, I think.
I was going to ask about that, if this is what kicked off the disaster genre or if this was just following the trend.
There'd been plenty, there'd been enough, but like they really kicked into gear in the 70s and stuff. You had like this and like your airport and any type of situation where we could put people in peril and danger and stuff like that. We were all about it. And especially if it came to any kind of like natural disaster or something like that, it was perfect.
And I don't want to get too far ahead of things, but when we saw Leslie Nielsen, I was really hoping that the Poseidon Adventure was similar to Airplane, but it is not.
There's no pratfalls in this. What gives?
And Airplane 2 had chowder buckets. No chowder buckets in this.
No, this was a PG-rated movie. But then again, this was also 1972, so there was always a chance you might get at least a chowder bucket, at least one of them.
Back in 1987, you could have up to 7 nipples and still be G.
Yeah. Hey, listen, what's it like? Damn near the opening shot of Barbarella is her like getting out of a space suit there and everything, and floating around topless for a second. You're like, hold on, this is a G-rated film.
Don't they do some Austin Powers like gags though? I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
No. There's straight nipple on screen.
Just straight chowder bucket. Okay.
Now, granted, not for nothing, and not to be crass here or anything. There's not a whole lot going on, so you're not like, oh wow. It's just kind of like, all right, well, she's just a skinny broad from the '70s, so it's not like we're, it's not like what's her face there.
Jane Fonda was pretty darn cute then.
Oh, she's cute, that's for sure. Voluptuous, not as much.
Yeah, but Barbarella's more about cuteness. I don't know. What am I talking about? The movie's garbage. The movie is garbage. Remember it is the topless scene. And that's the only reason it's in the zeitgeist.
And Duran. That's it. Like the Duran got its name from the movie Barbarella there and everything. So I feel like those are like the two things. Oh, and that was a cool looking gun she had in there. That little big future rifle dealing. That's cool.
Barbarella, one of the few classic comic book movies we never covered on the old show.
Oh, what do you know? Maybe when we get to our no, that's never gonna happen.
To Jane Fonda month.
Our Jane Fonda month. Listen, if we get to a Jane Fonda month, this show's been going on for a while because
we will use her slogan, "No pain, no gain," for that one, because there'll be some pain in Jane Fonda.
Oh my word! I'm not even going to get into it. I had things to say, but I'm not even going to get to it. Because before we do that, we do want to say a giant thank you to people who support us over at patreon.com/HMP. Those people get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, and some behind-the-scenes things for what we're doing on the YouTube page. And if you can't support over at Patreon, for heaven's sake, go over to the YouTube page, subscribe there. We've gotten almost 4,000 new subscribers in the last month. It's been fantastic. It's been really, really good. The response of everything has been quite fantastic. And we just need more of you to like, subscribe, and get on that train there and everything. I'm producing some new videos and whatnot.
The only YouTube channel with the worlds of making popcorn and watching Super Lopez combined.
Yeah, exactly. Man, let me tell you something. Had I properly monetized Super Lopez.
I told you this because I was in the act of monetizing my channel around this time, and I was super envious that you were leaving all that money on the table, and I'm scratching for $100 here and there.
Listen, I didn't think anyone would ever watch any or listen to any crap. Come on now. Never thought this might pay off for half a second, but sure, shooting it is. I'm actually and
yeah,
that's,
you left about $3,000 on the table with that Super Lopez.
Yeah, I think at least. Not to between that and then the RRR, but I could have anyways. So help me make up for lost time. Go to
the RRR review brought to you by the Indian Snow Leopard Preservation Society, because boy did they show up on the comments to that one.
This is wrong. You are incorrect, sir. And you're like, okay. How dare you come up with ideas that you don't know nothing about? That's my realm over here, Bruce. How dare you?
I didn't say leopard. I said Leopolds. There are no Leopolds in India.
Or maybe you just want to email us, man. halfassmoviepod@gmail.com. Let's get into it. Here's the IMDb plotline for the Poseidon Adventure. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. A group of passengers must embark on a harrowing struggle for survival after a rogue wave capsizes their cruise ship at sea. That's not bad. That's not bad for an IMDb.
And it's a classic film, so hopefully there were thousands of submissions, so it was easy to get a good one.
Well, let's do John Vogel's. His was like the second one. He's got a Comcast email, if that tells you anything. So,
woohoo! That means he's a baller.
But he writes, John Vogel writes, a passenger ship on her way to the scrapyard is pushed to her limits by the new owners to save on dismantling fees. A tidal wave hits her, flipping her over so that all the internal rooms are upside down. A priest takes a mixed band of survivors on a journey through the bowels of the ship in an attempt to survive. Old John Vogel's got that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, good for you, Mr. Volkster.
This is written by Sterling Silliphant, who wrote tons and tons of TV, Village of the Damned, The Towering Inferno later on, The Swarm, and of course, Over the Top. That's right.
Legend.
As well as Wendell Mays, who wrote The Spirit of St. Louis, Anatomy of the Murder, and we talked about it in the Dinger Zone, Death Wish. And written by, based upon a novel by Paul Gallico? Sure, Gallico. Directed by Ronald Name, starring Gene Hackman, Ernest Borgnine, Red Button, Shelley Winters, Jack Albertson, Stella Stevens, Roddy McDowell, Carol Linney, Pamela Sue Martin, Ed Martin, and Leslie Nielsen in his most comedic and hilarious role ever. I think that's how they build
it. The phrase all-star cast gets used a lot, but this really is a 70s all-star cast. Red Buttons was a name that people recognize. Gene Hackman, of course, getting ready to go into his peak of his career right around this time. This is pre-Popeye Doyle?
Yeah, so we're pre-Popeye, but we are post Bonnie and Clyde.
Okay. And, Ernest Borgnine, if you're a Patreon supporter, you know how much we love Ernest Borgnine by listening to the Dinger Zone. Roddy McDowell, you don't get somebody from the Planet of the Apes unless you really want to put butts in seats, although this might predate Planet of the Apes. I'm terrible with 70s movie years. Shelley Winters, a legend. I mean, we could go on and on. Leslie Nielsen reminding us why he got cast in Airplane, because he used to play these straight man roles.
And that was honestly, that's why I'm excited for the idea of them kind of rebooting the Naked Gun stuff with Leslie, or with why is my brain just taking a dive?
I want him to do it with Leslie Nielsen. No, let's keep going.
With all the Taken movies. Not Ed Helms. No, from the Taken films. God damn, Leslie
Liam
Neeson.
He'll be great.
All the
he does great straight man for comedy.
Exactly. I think he would do. He would have that kind of Leslie Nielsen-esque career and stuff where You know, he has this whole serious half, but he does have enough of comedic skills and everything. And I want to see that trajectory for him in his career from this point out. So please do that.
Oh man, did you say they were doing Naked Gun with him or Airplane with him?
Naked Gun, yeah.
Yeah, if that works, go ahead and do Airplane, man. I'm all for it.
Just keep remaking all of his films, but just put
Bring
him
back
right
Police
into
Squad with Liam Neeson. Leslie Nielsen was like a white Liam Neeson, so it works.
Yeah, it's pretty close. So, like, what's been your history with the Poseidon Adventure? Did you see this?
I've never seen it before.
Really?
This was my first watch as a child. You know, they show this around the holidays, and after watching like about 8 hours of things made by Rankin Bass, the last thing I wanted to do was watch old people on a cruise ship. So it had zero appeal to me as a child, but now I wish I had watched it closer to its time, because I think it would have been really impressive if you hadn't already seen some major practical effects out of James Cameron with the sinking ship.
That's one of the main kind of takeaways that I got watching this movie yet again. I've seen it many, many times at this point, and I'm really upset that it is that the one that I ended up purchasing, because I'm like, listen, I've been trying to get this on disc proper for some time, but it just hasn't worked out. It's always kind of been too expensive or whatever. And I go, all right, I'm just going to purchase this on iTunes because it's a movie that I know I'm going to come back to. It's fine, whatever. Man, I got so mad because this movie starts out, it shows us the opening credits there and everything, and it's in the 235 aspect ratio. You got your little black bars on top and bottom. Right after all those credits go, it is like we're back in 1986 all of a sudden. It go boop, black bars gone, and we're not 4:3, but we're taking off the sides and stuff and going 185. So we are zooming into the picture, cutting off 20% on the left screen, 20% on the right. So maybe not that much, but 10-15%. It was annoying. It's like, this doesn't have to be there. Why is this that? And like,
that would only bother you. There's like one person on earth that would bother. And that just happens to be you.
Well, I think there's more than that, but it looks so darn, like, it looks pretty good. Like the one that I got there from iTunes, everything looks pretty good, and all I'm thinking is like, man, somebody like Arrow Video or something needs to get on this and restore this thing, because like, as good as it looks now, if you re-got that 35 millimeter print there and everything, rescanned and made it look really good, this movie could look fantastic, and it deserves to look fantastic, especially with all of these like great sets, because there's a lot of stuff going on here that's a little bit tough to see just because things aren't super sharp as far as picture goes.
Well, I was pretty impressed with the transfer I watched on Amazon.
It's probably the same.
It felt authentic. It felt like it was well preserved but not remastered, which is kind of what I like. Sometimes when they're remastered, it looks a little. Sometimes it almost delves into looking like you're watching a cartoon or an AI video. You know
it's
what
like,
I mean?
Yeah. Well, listen, I didn't buy it, but like somebody was giving away a copy of Aliens, the digital version of Aliens, just like the digital download code and whatever. Yeah. So I happened to snag it, and I was like, because I don't really want to pay for that movie, because I know what they did to it with AI and smoothing and all this stuff. But I was like, I do want to see it, so I can see what it is. So I put it in, and it's just like. When they overdo it for the remasters and stuff like that, it's weird. It's like, it shouldn't, like, something that I'm seeing from the 80s shouldn't have zero grain to it at all. It's like, it seems like television's odd.
Yeah.
So you can't overdo it. But they, at least with this one, it still looks pretty good. I was just mad that the aspect ratio is wrong, because I'm looking at it just going like, this isn't right. This isn't right.
Yeah, that went past me. I'm not I mean, if it was 4:3, I would notice. As long as it's a rectangle, I'm usually pretty happy.
It fills up most. Well, hey, listen, that's what people wanted, though. They were just like, well, it's got the black bars. I wanted to fill the whole screen. Fill the screen.
I think I had black bars at the top and bottom when I watched.
Oh, you did at the beginning.
Oh, okay. And then they kind of went away.
And then they went away. And like most people, their brain would already be, locked into seeing it in the widescreen.
It happened to me. I was locked in and didn't realize they went away.
Yeah. The second it happened, I'm like, what? What is it? What?
I did a review of the Snyder cut of Justice League or whatever. And there's a part where I talked about the aspect ratio, and just for that like 2 minutes or less of my video, I gimmicked my video so my aspect ratio changed to a square.
Nice.
Not a single comment from anyone who noticed.
Oh,
That's about your brain getting locked in, man. Because I didn't, point it out. I just let it in there subtly to see if anybody would notice, and it went unnoticed.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, when I did my YouTube video review of Demolition Man and everything, I make a Dennis Leary joke, which is actually a Bill Hicks joke.
Exactly. If you want to see my set, just go watch Dennis Leary tonight.
But the funny part is like no one realizes when I mention Bill Hicks, but I throw up a picture of Alex Jones. No one has said a word.
Which video was that?
In the Demolition Man one, I mentioned how
I've got to watch it now because I definitely would recognize Alex Jones as not Bill Hicks.
I just mentioned him like, hey, it's like I like Dennis Leary because he's not really playing Dennis Leary, which really means he's not playing him. So I was like, but then I showed a picture of Alex Jones, and no one said a word on it yet though.
Occasionally, I would mention like Sean in a video and just throw up Larry from Three's Company, and nobody ever commented on that.
So Gene Hackman kind of plays like what I would actually call kind of almost your quintessential 70s preacher and stuff, because we're at a time when
progressive preacher. Yeah,
exactly.
He's the guy that's just waiting for the founding of the Universal Unitarian Church or whatever.
He's the Catholic priest there and everything, but they're still kind of stuck in their ways, and we're very much in the kind of the me generation time of everything, where everything was kind of like, you've got to be your own person and you're the one who like, and the funny thing is, or the great part I think is that like, he doesn't have a bad message, but like but like, as you would imagine with the character, it's like it's lacking something because he's not wrong.
They're sending him to Africa as punishment.
Mm-hmm.
And what I read between the lines is if you say God helps him who helps himself, which is pretty much what Gene Hackman is saying, is you can't just pray. You got to get yourself out of this. But the church is here, and well, if God helps those who helps themselves, then why would they give us 10% of their money every week? So we need to tell them, no, you need God, so you keep giving us the money. Like in my mind, I was tracing it back to the capitalism of the Catholic Church, and he was getting exiled for preaching something that's maybe not commercial.
Well, maybe, yeah, because
sometimes I create my own narratives to help me enjoy the show more, but I pictured him as like a guy who's fighting against the sins of the church, so he's getting exiled.
There's probably, I would imagine there's a bit of that too, but like, I also like, at least, it feels like it's coming from a good place because he goes, hey, listen, this is what I want. They're like, listen, you can't just hang around here and, and be, offloading these new kind of ideas and stuff. We're going to send you off and do some missionary work. And he's like, well, guess what? I want to go do some missionary work because, like, he at least, he is on a righteous enough mission. It may not agree with, what the Catholic Church is doing at this particular time and stuff, but like, he is a man of God, but also wants people to kind of, get with it themselves. But like, that's what I always kind of liked about his characters. It always kind of feels like he's kind of teetering on that sort of edge as a man of God, but yet somebody who also is questioning God at the exact same time.
And I love Hackman. He always turns in great performances, but he also, he has that everyman quality, right? There's no more everyman.
But he's a leading man. Like he's a leading everyman
with that everyman quality. And I think that's why I've always loved him. Like I think if they had made Die Hard in 1974, you've got to have Gene Hackman as John McClane, not Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. He's and I think it's to Gene Hackman's advantage, believe it or not, and you wouldn't think so being in Hollywood, but I think his, just premature balding helped his entire career.
Hey, Lex Luthor is the reason I know him. Come on, you're like me. You grew up on Superman, so yeah. He's a legend because he is the only Lex Luthor, and he's also the hairiest Lex Luthor.
Yeah, it was just like, but that was also some of the greatest, where it's just like, listen, man, it's the 70s. I ain't shaving this hair.
But I love it. They still made him wear wigs. So they gave him some ridiculous wigs a couple times.
We'll make you look
because
cool.
The whole example is supposed to be, Lex Luthor's bald, but he wears a wig. That way Gene Hackman didn't have to shave his hair.
Good old Gene Hackman. But yeah, he's really great in this movie, and just given like every single moment feels real. It doesn't feel like he's phoning in anything here. I feel like I'm watching this preacher who's having, an existential crisis along with the crisis of a boat capsizing.
Now, I don't know exactly how old Red Buttons is, but he always felt like a guy who was too young to have actually been vaudeville, but he's trying to make you think he's from vaudeville.
I don't know, but like he's one of those people that can simultaneously look very young and old at the exact same time, and this movie's definitely proof of that.
Yes, he was a smoker, unfiltered.
He looks like he could easily he could play anywhere between 25 and 65 in this movie, and you're like, and you could see either or really. You're like,
and this is
maybe I don't know.
This is some of my own cultural influence coming out, but to me, Red Buttons looks like the funniest guy in the coal mine. Like that's the way he looks to me.
I like that description. That's pretty good. But he's really great in this too. And I think one of the things that really cements this whole movie is the world building that we do within the first 24 minutes of this movie. The amount of legwork that goes in and table setting for all of our characters, where everything's going to go, who they are, what their motivations and stuff are, is laid out so quickly and organically that you barely even realize any time has gone by, and then boom, we're sinking of the ship. But we've already known all the players because they've all left enough of a large impression on us that we know where everybody kind of stands, and we almost know who's going to be kind of cordoned off into one group, and the other side who's going to be left to do God knows what. I imagine die if you think about it. Because at the end they're just like, hey, is there anybody else in there? They're like, we don't know. Hell, just let us out.
I do like that scene. It's later on in the movie, but they see another group of survivors wandering by, and then suddenly it feels very Walking Dead. It's like we're in an apocalypse, but it's a microcosm apocalypse.
I thought that that's a really great tool there and everything. And then it also, because it brings up the thing that everybody would be thinking at that point is, am I making the right decision? Where am I, because you could stay in that ballroom. You could go up top. You do have that 50-50 shot. Which one is the right one? You don't know.
Now, I have a theory about what makes or breaks whether or not someone is going to enjoy this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think it all comes down to how you feel about the little boy, the kid.
Okay. I can see that because
that kid is very involved in this story, and I love it because I like I like remembering when I was a kid and I would have related to this kid, and I like his precociousness.
Exactly,
I could see him annoying some people.
No, I watched this though, and I knew this kid was up your alley all day long. I was like, this kid's a little dickhead. He's going around. He knows all the crap about the ship. I'm like, this character is right up Bruce Leslie's avenue right here. But at the same time, here's the best part about that, because if we continued what we see kind of at the beginning and everything with the bratty little know-it-all brother and stuff who's breaking into the captain's lounge here and everything, going, hey boys, I know we're in the middle of a big giant raging storm here and everything, but you said stop by anytime, so I'd like to talk. So he's annoying little shit like that. But we do have these little moments and stuff where the humanity of this little kid actually comes out. You feel like he does actually care about his sister. He might be an annoying little kid, but what 9-year-old's not annoying?
His sister, on the other hand, you could completely cut her from the show and it does not change a thing.
Maybe not, but I would say this, at least she is a good actor. When she's upset about stuff, and at least I can see it on her face. I believe what she's saying. She's not. She may not have a narrative plot other than the fact that she's for lack of a better word, foil for the little brother and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I don't know that.
Budget clearly not a concern when they're making this movie. I mean, this is for 1972 standards, pretty big at a $5 million budget. So, but if they had to cut some costs somewhere, they probably could have just cut that role. Because it really doesn't change the story. She doesn't die. She doesn't have any heroic moments. She's just kind of there. And it's also one of those weird things where at first I wasn't sure who she was until I figured out it was his sister. Maybe I missed her initial introduction, but she interacts with people so little.
Yeah.
And she's also that 1972 person who could be 13 or 26. You're talking about Red Buttons, but I had no idea.
So Red Buttons and his little love interest in the story and everything, apparently on which by the way, they look like they actually care about each other, Yep. These two characters are going back and forth. I'm just like, wow, there's a lot of really good little acting going on. Apparently they hated each other.
Well, they're professionals, man.
They got on each other's nerves and stuff. But the good news is from what I'm to understand, is they would both kind of in years after the movie and everything talked about how oh gosh, we just didn't get along or whatever. But apparently that story of them not liking each other actually bonded them together. And then
that's cool.
And then they became friends later in life and stuff, where they were just like, hey, you know what? I think we were both being little jerks back then. So, all's well that ends well. So I thought that was at least nice that, he didn't end up hating a co-star forever. That's a good thing.
And, even though it's PG, they did want to give us a little eye candy 1972 style by having the wife of Ernest Borgnine pull off her dress and change into his button-up shirt. Mm-hmm. However, they did rob us of her changing into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They didn't even have her do the thing where she turns around and all you see is her back. But they did take a few shots of her climbing up the ladder to pay it off if you were still watching.
The best part is like I'm sitting there like while she's climbing up there, you got Ernest Borgnine there at the bottom and he's looking up and I'm just sitting there going like, yeah, that's right. You climb that tree, baby. he's looking at it like he's like, hey, that's still my lady. But again, let's talk about the relationship between those two characters.
Yeah,
again, this
clearly
should be thrown away. This should be nothing. You should not care about these characters, but you care about them almost instantaneously.
I mean, it's the cop and the hooker. It's like this interesting Beauty and the Beast kind of story in its own way. But also, if she weren't quote unquote damaged goods, he would never land a chick like that, to use some 72 parlance. So it really works. Like this is one of those stories. Like people talk about efficient writers, and you can say like by writing one or two lines in a song, everything about these people. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I just see their whole relationship and his insecurities and judgment and her wishing that he would just forgive her for, like, I see it all play out when they don't talk about that, but the way they talk about other stuff, it makes that transparent. I think that's one of the best unspoken stories in the movie.
Yeah, they mention everything, but they leave enough up to your own thought and piecing things together for yourself that doesn't treat the audience like it's stupid, even though it does kind of spell things out. But like it spells things out in like a really great way. And where she was just like, you arrested me 4 times. It's just like, how else was I going to keep you off the streets to let you know that I love you or whatever? It's like, yeah, there's some really and there's little moments that like that throughout this entire movie where there is just like, all of a sudden they will hit you with some like real emotional stuff right to the chest. And if you're not watching out, boy, this movie can blindside you one. And you wouldn't think with, just this kind of, Irwin Allan action adventure kind of thing going on. You wouldn't suspect that, but it is here.
And also Irwin Allan sounds like he's the guy who took care of Paul Revere's horse or something. Like it does not seem like a movie director's name.
Well, I mean, he produced probably a little bit more. He did do some directing, but probably produced maybe a little bit more than that.
Oh,
but
that's who produced this. That's why the name doesn't sound like a director's name. It sounds like a rich dude.
Yeah, you got like that, and like he's one of these guys, and then you got like the kind of garbage version of that with your Bird Eye Gordon. He's doing, but like instead of doing like burning buildings and stuff, he's doing like we got a lizard that's 10 feet tall.
Now, have you seen the original movie poster for the Poseidon Adventure?
There's a lot of them. Which one are we talking about?
Okay, well, the one that I'm looking at says it's the theatrical release poster.
Okay.
So, like, was the original one when it was in theaters that I guess was endorsed by the studio, but it just says Hell Upside Down. You have to work hard to find out the name of the movie. But man, that poster would have had me sold on this movie. It's just got water just spewing into a crowded ballroom with people running everywhere. Oh man, it is a great movie poster. It's all painted.
I was about to say,
it's not a photograph.
Exactly. Back in the day when we were actually painting full on movie posters and stuff. And again, when you've got like these giant crowds and stuff like that, it looks like a George Perez painting. There's a gajillion things going on, but you can't help but like look at every tiny little inch and stuff. Yeah. But the cool with the title itself, the Poseidon Adventure, in the ship that's upside down in the water at the bottom, very cool.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I didn't even realize that was an upside down ship. You pointed it out, but that makes sense with the story here. She's top heavy. But man, based on just the clips that you see in between commercial breaks on G.I. Joe saying that it's going to be playing later tonight in prime time or whatever, I really expected this movie to be more like you have an hour of everybody getting to know each other and learning their backstories and who the characters are, and then an hour of just nonstop disaster and people dying. Mm-hmm. I had no idea they were going to put the disaster up front, and this became a survival story and a microcosm of a post-World War II Europe, perhaps, like which way do we go? I can build all kinds of allegories in my mind, like they're the Jewish people. Should they go back to Israel or should they try to find a new home in America? You know, like all the kind of stuff that happened after World War II. I can see some of that coming through here. And I very different than what I expected. I would have been terribly disappointed as a 12-year-old that it wasn't nonstop ship sinking, but I really like what they did with it. This is like watching a book in a positive way.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the big thing is that in a movie like this, that normally, you're correct, focuses more on the artifice of whatever the disaster is at the time. This goes, we have that, but that literally is the background for this story with these characters and stuff. Everybody has their own little arc here and everything.
Yes. It's like good epic fantasy where every side character has their own backstory and arc. And they do that with pretty much everybody except for the sister.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think because the brother's a little bit more of a kind of annoying audience cipher, if you will, because he's going to be the one that's kind of just yapping and giving off some plot points and stuff like that and just going like, well, what about this? But I think the what about thing that you really need to get into is how does Gene Hackman, who is a preacher, know this much about boats and specifically this cruise ship? Now, I like the idea that we've got the little nosy kid who's been around and bugging everybody for the last week. And again, that's another thing that we only kind of get into just a half a smidge on this, is that this ship has actually been out to sea much longer than it was supposed to. Everybody was supposed to go home at this point.
They were trying to save money because it would cost money to dismantle it. But the weird thing is it's going from New York City to Athens, which I think if you got a ship that's on its last legs, maybe you go from like Rome to Athens. New York City to Athens sounds like an ambitious journey to me. And they make it all the way to the Aegean before they capsize. But the thing that got me when I was kind of reading the in between the lines, reading the summaries and stuff to see if there's anything I missed, they detect an earthquake under the ocean, which is what causes the tidal wave, which is, cool. But then the only thing I'm thinking, earthquake under the ocean in the Aegean Sea means massive tsunamis going to be hitting like Greece. Like I want to see as terrible as this disaster story is. Imagine all the dead tourists on the Greek Isles. Like I wanted to see Mamma Mia, only the tsunami hits in the middle of the ceremony.
Cut to. Listen, man, at least it felt kind of believable here. I remember seeing the Poseidon Adventure that they redid in like the 2000s. The only person I remember being in it was Fergie. Don't ask me why. But when they specifically mentioned Rogue Wave in the 2000s, everyone in the theater laughed. Everyone just thought that was now granted, that's a real thing, but for whatever reason in the 2000s, ain't nobody know that. And we were all just like, a rogue wave? What the hell are you even on about? Turns out that's real, but everybody in that audience all just giggled because they just thought that was the silliest little phrase.
And having seen the Titanic and the Perfect Storm, I expected more of the disaster rather than the aftermath, because this isn't really what I was thinking a disaster movie is. This is a survival movie after the disaster.
Right, because the ship overturning and everything takes less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was surprised. And I can understand why, because they're doing this all with practical effects, and they do some amazing practical effects, in my opinion here.
Yeah, where like the stage itself could move to like 45 degrees, which is pretty wild. So like when we see people falling and stuff, like people are actually falling. And from what I'm to understand, like everybody, like no stunt person was hurt on this movie or nothing, which
James
is pretty
Cameron
wild.
Can't say that. But and didn't they do some nice miniatures work where you see some exterior shots of the ship?
Oh yeah. There's definitely a lot of, and that's, to me, that's what
to kind of set perspective, we'll call it a miniature because it's smaller than the ship, but I bet you they use something the size of the G.I. Joe SS flag for that.
Oh yeah, it was probably like 10, 15 feet long, maybe.
It looked really good.
You still got to do to some degree with that, but that's what's kind of cool about this movie, and what I think, especially like really up until the early, up until I would say even the late 90s, disaster movies and stuff like that were very artsy. in a lot of ways. And I mean that in as much as we had to actually do the things. We couldn't just create everything in a computer. And that's where, like, not for nothing, like there's a lot of cool stuff that happens in The Day After Tomorrow, but like you look at it and you're like, well, it's all CGI. Who cares?
Yeah.
This, like there's like, while everybody is doing something artistic, be it a computer or like, miniatures and all this other stuff, there's a craft that is involved with what we're doing here in the 70s and 80s and stuff that just doesn't apply, kind of post 90s and everything like that. So just seeing how they had to do all of these things, that's the awesome part.
And they give you a product that the story and the performances work on stage, on television, or in the theater.
You could see this as a play 100%.
Yeah. They really multitasked a story back then. There wasn't as much division, and every movie wasn't made for streaming, but every movie they understood, if we can get it on the movie of the week on ABC, that's going to pump up our revenue long term.
I like the kind of upside down set design here and everything. Things that wouldn't normally be attached to the floor are kind of attached, but you can always kind of go, it's part of the it's part of the C stuff. You actually have to lock down those tables on account of that, which you wouldn't, but you kind of go with it. But I do like when we go for the barber shop there and everything, and the barbershop chairs are hanging upside down. That looked cool. But again, those would be mobile. You wouldn't.
Yeah, I liked it though.
No, it's cool.
Is the way that they filmed that scene is they left everything on the ground and they tied the actors to the ceiling.
Oh, that makes sense. Put a little helium in their boots.
They just turned up the camera upside down and told them, act like you're on the floor.
You remember those wing shoes that you used to get in Zelda? Let you walk.
Now, there was a subplot that I'll go ahead and call a plot hole because I didn't like it. But as much as I liked the love story between the cop and the hooker, I didn't like that she was afraid to go meet the captain because he might recognize her. Because here's the thing about recognizing a hooker. That means you hired a hooker. So you're not making her look any worse than you make yourself look, right? I mean, am I off base here?
Unless
I know her. She's a hooker. Are you going to shout that out if you're the captain of a ship?
What if he just goes, my buddy Ernesto hired a hooker and it looked an awful lot like this, like he's got to put it off on somebody else?
Yeah, but also, here's another thing. Now, I don't know. I don't know a ton about hookers. I'll admit that. Maybe you know more than I do.
My limited knowledge.
What do you think was her territory? A max of like 3 blocks? How many ship captains lived on those 3 blocks? Like, I think she's safe. And then I would also dare say, like, if you're working on the street, you probably dress differently, put on a little more makeup. Maybe your hair's all hairsprayed out a lot differently than an elegant evening gown. I think it'd be pretty easy for a person. Like, I don't think that the guys who were picking up hookers on the street in Times Square in 1972 were spending a lot of time studying what their faces look like.
No, and the best part is even Ernest Borgnine looks at her and just goes, what are the odds of this?
But then doesn't she say, but he recognized me? Like, later it comes out somebody did recognize her, and that's when I'm like, okay, you had a good movie going till then.
Well, yeah, it is a little, but at the same time too, I like to think that somewhere in her head she was just making that up, and like she didn't really again, say what you will, and surely there's plenty to say as we just have. It does lend a sweetness to her character and stuff that she doesn't. Yeah. She doesn't want to live that life that she formerly did, and that's what makes the character, both her character and Bergnine's character, more interesting. Is because they're both flawed. They both have like he's older and stuff. Probably couldn't get with anybody at this point in his particular life and everything. She's younger, but used goods here and whatnot. So it's just like the two of them kind of like completing each other is a really sweet sort of thing. And I like how it doesn't sit there and point a judgy finger at either one of them. But like at the same time too, you know where he's coming from, but you know where her mind is at. But like the best part is he doesn't even care. Like he's just like, so what? So what if they find that out? Like he's proud of who she is, even despite her past and everything. So, and like again, like I said, that just brings like a sweetness and heart to these characters that doesn't necessarily need to be there in a movie that's about a boat turned upside down.
It could have, you know, the boat turned upside down was just a framing story. Any kind of survival story with these group of people facing adversity would work, and that's a beautiful thing.
Let's talk about Shelley Winters, man. Golly,
let's talk about her. I'm a fan.
She just like from the get of go here, like you just like you feel every emotion coming off of this woman. It is so amazing. And then we got, you know, your classic grandpa. What was his name in the Wonka? Grandpa Joe.
Sure, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, Grandpa Joe from Willy Wonka is her husband, and he's fantastic. He's also really good. Again, giving every single character, say for the sister, their time to shine there and everything. So good.
And I mean, I love her and her self-image and everything she's dealing with, which seems very realistic. And a lot of times we don't like to deal with those things in a realistic fashion right now. Also the idea that, you know, everybody has their own talent, even when you don't expect it. And the fact that she could hold her breath a really long time. And that came in handy if unfortunately she died of a heart attack as soon as she saved the day. But everything about her, and like you said, all those emotions coming off, she's larger than life. She is one of those people that was born to be on stage, which is where she shines, is in live theater. But man, she's like that wonderful, like, yeah, she's my sweet great aunt, but I know back in her 20s, she was a fireball. Like that is what Shelley Winters says to me just with her smile.
Mm-hmm. It's like when she sees Red Buttons walking down there, it's like we're laying all this out. We're finding out who he is. We're finding out the relationship between her and her husband, and how that ends up playing out. Her kind of her selflessness in a lot of ways, because like at the end of the day, she doesn't want to drag folks down. You know, she's constantly being like, "Hey, leave me behind. I don't really need to do this." But again, it's that great thing that you don't see enough in movies where it's just like, no, listen, you are a part of this group. We are going to, you know, in today's movie, we'd be like, yeah, get that fat bitch, kick her out of here. We don't need her. We want to survive.
Too. When the kid is pulling her up with the fire hose, he says, don't worry, I once pulled up a 600-pound fish. But then he later comes back and apologizes for it, which is kind of a cool way for a writer to be able to think that next step and have the kid do that. Because, you know, usually the writer's the one who put those words in his mouth. He's not going to apologize for him.
Yeah. But at the same time, too, it is what a kid would think.
Yeah.
Like that's very much a 9-year-old's thought process. And the fact that and that's what helps the character not be that little shit character that he was at the beginning and everything, the little smart kid that knows all about the ship and stuff like that. That little moment humanizes that character so much to where he's like, hey, I'm sorry. You know, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just talking because I'm a 9-year-old kid and I don't know any better.
Makes me want to take my youngest on a cruise just so he can drag me around by a fire hose for a week.
We find, like, first of all, these kids got to be from some money, right? Because as their parents are like, hey, you just, you know, get on this cruise ship and come on and meet us.
Not only do their parents have money, but they hate their children. Like it's a 1-2 punch. So go to Athens on this outdated ship. Like, we love you enough to send you to Athens, but not enough to buy you a ticket on one of the good boats.
Well, speaking of boats, let's talk about this boat here and everything. I kind of love it. This 70s style boat here and everything. From what I'm to understand, it was kind of modeled after the Queen Mary. It
feels like a throwback to when the boats weren't really cruises. I mean, some of the first class passengers got a cruise out of it, but it was still an inexpensive means of transportation. Like that boat is also probably shipping mechanical parts in part of it. And it's probably got like underclass immigrants in the bowels of the ship. I mean, that's what it feels like.
We got to have somebody to row this thing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's big and it's cruise ship-esque and everything, but like you said, there's also something that's still quite small about it and everything. I love how we've just got wood paneling everywhere, green, teal carpet and whatnot. It is 1972 all over. It's kind of glorious. So, like, I love how low tech the engine room and everything looks, but it's what would be on that ship, you know, in 1971.
Yeah, and instead of feeling like a pleasure cruise, it feels like, well, we're going to take this long trip and try to make it as comfortable as possible by putting a few niceties up here.
Yeah, this isn't the luxury cruise that you were looking for. It's one there like we'll have a little party every now and then, but that's about it.
These are people For $10 more, they could have gotten a plane ticket, but they really needed to save that cash for the holidays.
I do like how at one point, though, like, the hooker looks and was just like, I wanted to take a plane.
Yeah.
She's like, listen, and honestly, a plane ticket's it can't cost that much. It can't cost so this cruise has to be cheap as hell then.
Life is a finite resource. It's got to take like 3 weeks on this boat to get from New York to Athens, right? It's not like a 2-day trip.
They've been going at it strong though, because when we literally first start frame one of the movie here and everything, they're already under some bluster. There's when you look at what's going on they're looking out the front window of the ship there and everything, and it's like, this is bad news. This is not good. These are giant waves at this point right now.
Yeah, I get the idea. I don't know if they said it or I just imagined it, but it's like, I get to retire tomorrow for the cop. This is like,
it's practically
tomorrow we
that.
arrive in Athens. This is our last night on the sea.
And what happens just before retirement? Bam!
You get partnered up with Riggs and Murtaugh.
Brad Pitt, and you got to go through it one more time, and then it's like, oh, well, that didn't end up super well. But listen, all the elements kind of come together, and to me, that's the most amazing part of all of this is that juggling play of everything between all the different lines of the characters, between that extra group that is off, kind of. Honestly, that would have been a cool one to have like that as like your sequel, is like the other side of the ship. Just so we get to see where all of those people were during that thing, and then we come across Gene Hackman's crew for like 5 seconds in that movie as well, and then we kind of see where that group ends up. That'd be an interesting idea.
I would like to see a prequel miniseries on 1970s television where like one night is the story of how Ernest Borgnine and his wife got together. The next night is the story of Shelley Winters growing up and then gaining weight as she gets older. The next night is about Gene Hackman's struggles with the parish before they exile him to Africa. Like and the kid just getting slapped by his mom for telling her she's doing everything wrong. It would be like the mom from the Superman movie be brought in just to slap him.
How dare you? Oh gosh, I had something, but I totally forgot it because the stupid IMDb is playing movie trailers, and it gets distracting when all of a sudden Ray Romano's face comes on, and you're like, "What is this?"
Yeah,
like why is Ray Romano there? But
do you think the movie would have been better with more disaster, prolong the crashing of the waves and the sinking of the ship, and get more and more scenes of the destruction? I kind of would have liked to have had a longer montage of destruction.
Yeah, they probably could have gone on for a little longer there, and I think there could definitely be some edits and stuff within the third act, I think.
So
just to shorten some stuff up, just to kind of get things at a little bit of a better clip. And honestly, if you're not doing that, you might as well also add in a little bit of extra music to kind of, because there are some
John Williams
lows.
did the score, I think.
Well, like I said, it's like there's just I wouldn't be surprised because the Irwin Allan also did Time Tunnel, and that's where John Williams kind of cut his teeth early on.
Yeah, I feel like John Williams is underutilized here because we know what greatness he can bring to a movie, and I feel like if they'd let him get some good swelling tension building music going here, it would have been nice too. But they didn't. John Williams was not John Williams yet; he was just Johnny.
No, absolutely true. He was like, if you look back on Time Tunnel, he's Johnny Williams and everything. But this was kind of, he'd done, like John Williams had done your television and stuff, definitely Time Tunnel. And when you hear Time Tunnel theme, you're just like, oh yeah. That's like, it's John Williams meets Doctor Who in a lot of ways, I feel like.
Oh, I like that, man. That's pretty cool.
It's very, it's an interesting little show and whatnot, but you can see, Johnny Williams.
Well, clearly, based on the box office, the 1972 movie-going audience had no complaints and no notes because this made you. Do you know how many times its budget this movie made at the box office?
It's almost. I know it made 80 million. I think something like that.
No, it made more than that.
More than that. Oh my lord!
On a less than $5 million budget, it made 120 million.
Oh, see, even better.
Yeah, because this was still pre-VHS in 1972, so I think it got a re-release the following year around New Year's. But yeah, 24 times your budget usually makes a producer happy, right?
Yeah, I mean, like the only people that are doing that kind of stuff these days is like your Terrifier, which was like $2 million budget, $83 million return.
And if this movie were made today, we would have at least 7 follow-ups because you don't make that kind of money and not try to go for a cheap score with a sequel.
Now
this would have been the Fast and Furious on the water.
Oh, for sure. Now we've remade this movie and stuff, but like, let's kind of talk about like, can we do something like this today? Do we have any character actors that we would want to be putting on a boat and all that kind of stuff? I don't know.
Today, this is a 6 to 8 episode Netflix or Prime or HBO Max kind of streaming show, because it's suddenly they take all the tropes that one audience is over with, things like The Walking Dead, and they try to make this The Walking Dead on a sunken ship, and the two factions end up fighting some. It comes a little bit like Lost, a little bit. I was
about to say there's a little Lost in there. It sounds like, yeah,
but that's what I think happens if they try to remake this effectively now. Or you can just put Matthew McConaughey in a movie.
Yeah. Gene Hackman, let's just because we need to be giving this man his flowers before he's gone. He's just recently had a birthday, but he's probably not long for this world too much more. So let's praise the man while he's here. Gene Hackman, absolutely killing it. I just have to say that again and again. And I don't know that there's anybody else that you could put in this role, even in 1971, who would do what Gene Hackman did with this thing, because he is so believable in this role. And for somebody who I don't know nothing from Gene Hackman, but I don't feel like he's probably a religious person, but like I feel like he is when I watch this movie.
Man, there's only one Gene Hackman. Like he is that guy that sneakily turns in a great performance that feels like it's a pulpy performance, and then you look at like, no, that's actually good. It's strange.
He has that ability to kind of walk up to that line, and not like Al Pacino does, because Al Pacino like walks over the line, then steps his toe over a couple times and says, "Ha ha ha! See if you can find me."
Just 8 times.
Gene Hackman is like, he never really steps over, but he's so darn close sometimes to that line, but like he never kind of skips past over like a Pacino or somebody would end up doing. Gene Hackman always would kind of like lean it back there just a little bit.
The one word I would use to describe Gene Hackman's performances and everything I've seen him in that I think sells it better than anything else is confidence. He always seems confident in what he's saying, confident in what he's doing. That makes him feel natural.
Yeah, exactly. Like he embodies the character that he's in and everything, to where it's a believable performance because we believe that he believes it.
What did you think of the big ending here, where we have to sacrifice our hero in order for the others to live? The noble sacrifice at the end. I think it fits in perfectly with what they're doing here, and it fits that character. Of course, nowadays they're not going to do it just in case they need him. They probably already had him sign a 3-picture deal before they started making the movie.
Yeah, it's kind of perfect, really. But that's also what makes the movie really great, is because characters die. Like, there are real ramifications to this movie. Characters that you have seen, that the movie has like imparted you with. You got to know these people, and then we took them away from you. We made their deaths actually mean something. It
honestly has the death pacing and the character deaths on par with a well-made slasher movie. I mean, they're paced out. Sometimes they're just as shocking, and you get your body count. I mean, if instead of it being a disaster that was killing them, it was someone in a mask, it would still play out about the same way in the times and the killings and the unexpected nature and such.
And we sit with it. We don't brush past them. When Borgnine's wife dies, we feel what he's feeling. Because this is a guy who finally, throughout his entire life, as you can kind of tell, at least what I can put together, it feels like he was never ever, able to find love. Finally gets it with somebody who you would likely not figure would end up filling that role. And then as everything's kind of coming together, that person gets taken away in just a horrific manner right there in front of you. And we sit with that. And it's like, that's huge. The same thing when Shelley Winters dies and everything. Yeah. Albert comes over there and holds her. It is so good. It is like,
and when
you
the
just feel those emotions.
Brother dies, same thing.
Exactly. And she's not even the greatest actor in the world, but like she's over there. You feel what she's doing. And Red Buttons is a great kind of foil for her, somebody to bounce off of and stuff too, because he just has a deep sincerity in his eyes and whatnot. I love it. He
was
so
America's
good.
sweetheart until Julia Roberts came along.
Yeah. Man, him and Richard Gere, that'd have been a different film.
I would have watched it.
Listen, you know, it's as long as as long as Larry Miller's still in it, I'm fine.
Red Buttons in drag, you got me. You got me.
I like how he's in drag with this. It's like you went a completely interesting direction.
Oh, he's got to be in drag
this
to play
plus
the
Tootsie.
Julia Roberts part.
No, I just figured he dressed exactly like this guy.
Okay, I'm in for that too. You just take it. Richard Gere's got different interests.
There you go. Why not? You know, it's like that. Like I said, it's a very different story. One that you wouldn't tell in the 80s. I can definitely say that.
A modern day love story between an old vaudevillian and a young gerbil lover.
Oh my goodness gracious. All right, well, let's get down to it. Movies only come in two forms, art or fart. Where does the Poseidon Adventure from 1972 fall for you, sir?
It's not just a good movie. I mean, you know, art or fart, we turn that into our thumbs up, thumbs down. This is not just a thumbs up. This really is art. I mean, there's storytelling art here. There's acting here that I think is on an artistic level, and you could learn a lot from. The practical effects, the set dressing. I love it all. This is definitely art.
Oh, did you know there's an F-bomb in this movie?
No, I missed that.
Apparently. Now, I haven't gone back and verified, but I will. Apparently, when they're moving the Christmas tree that's fallen down, and they want to move the Christmas tree to go over to the thing so they can kind of climb up and everything, everybody grabs onto it, and supposedly you can hear Ernest Borgnine saying like "motherfucker, this is huge" or so, like some sort of fuck line about how it was heavy.
So, how many people survived in the end? About 4?
If we are to believe that the other crew of people, like I said, that we're not quite sure of what happened to the others. Again, we're getting into more.
I think the rescuers have a throwaway line that said no one else survived. You're the only survivors.
Well, they do ask them if they're the only people, and
okay.
they pretty much go like, yeah. They kind of half answer.
Yeah, I assume they are. Let's go with that. How many of them were there? About 5?
Like 5, yeah, 5, 6.
So I pictured the sequel. Ernest Borgnine is sitting at his desk in the police station, you know, pushing papers around because he's been off the beat for a while. His phone rings, and it's NOAA, the National Oceanic and Aeronautical Association, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they say it's happened again. There's a big storm, and they flipped the boat. We're flying you and your guys back in. You're the only ones who've ever survived something like this. We're flying you into the shipwreck to rescue the people. And that's your sequel.
Listen, I'm telling you right here and right now, in 1972, that's not too far afield.
And I mean, you drop them off in like those yellow inflatable rafts, and you see them like buzzing their way right up to the ship and have to find a way in. And then once they find their way in, convincing people to listen to them and follow them and how they've been through this all before. And then somebody starts having flashbacks and they get paralyzed. Oh man, it'd be great.
Hey man, they got off of Gilligan's Island and went back. You're telling me
exactly
that,
that's the inspiration for my sequel idea. Like, it wasn't even going to be a different boat. They were going to pull this boat up
going on the minnow,
patch it, and send it on a new cruise.
You thought we were going to dismantle this thing. In fact, like we're recommissioning it.
It's like they go through a room and they see the skeleton that was once Shelley Winters laying in the water or something. Like that's what I was talking about.
She looks so thin now.
No, somehow they get an artist who can make a chubby skeleton.
Ooh, chubby skeleton. I'd like that. This is an art for me as well. This movie's fantastic. I'm going to have a I'm just saying it here, so I'll actually do it. You know how that is. But I'm going to have a video up on our YouTube page here and everything, telling you exactly when you need to start this movie if this is a movie that you want to see on New Year's Eve, because we're so darn close. This movie takes place on New Year's Eve, the strike of midnight, and I'm going to do a little video to let people know exactly where in this movie that they need to start that and how they can plan out their Poseidon Adventure New Year's Eve party.
So that your midnight hits the same time it hits in the movie?
Precisely.
Nice.
This is what can I be honest with you? The reason that I've always wanted, when I was, a manager of a movie theater, that's one of the things I wanted to do, was to have a Poseidon Adventure New Year's Eve screening when it hit when it hit midnight on screen. It was midnight in your theater. I've always wanted to do that. So this is as close as I'm getting, is this podcast here, and then putting a thing on the internet saying, hey, if and you want to do this, here's how you do that. So go check that out over on YouTube. Bruce, plug something. I don't know. What do you want to tell people?
Let's plug. I'll plug Werewolf Fighter again. A couple of people have been watching it as I've been plugging it. You're going to go over to YouTube and check out that awesome Half-Ass Movie Podcast channel. Why don't you go over to the Bruce Leslie Anime Dad channel and check out the commercial-free, award-winning extended short Werewolf Fighter.
That's a hell of a sale right there. I like that.
Oh, and go check out Adam's channel because it's really doing great, and you'll want to watch that stuff.
Yeah, man, I got a lot of good stuff out there. I've got a review of the new Nosferatu movie from when Mr. Eggers out there and everything. I got a couple more things on the way, and of course the classic popcorn video, which by the time that you're hearing this is probably right around 500,000 views.
Whoop whoop!
Which is an insane thought to me and everything.
Way higher than I ever got, man. I capped out under 200,000, so that's awesome.
And I want to tell all those people, watch some of the other videos. They're also good and they're also fun, and hopefully we'll be putting some more stuff together. I've got a lot of really great ideas. And again,
at the end of your popcorn video, I wish you'd said, you know what goes great with popcorn? Werewolf Fighter.
Not Werewolf
and watch it.
Just turns into a plug. I should put that as one of the end cards. Put your link in there. It's like, hey, are you hungry? You need this? But listen, if you liked any of those videos, followed over on YouTube there and everything, we really appreciated that. If you can't be a Patreon supporter, at least going over there, checking out those videos, leaving a thumbs up and a like. I want to do this too. I want to make this kind of a recurring segment just to kind of include some more audience participation. Okay.
Yeah.
So we post not only just the videos that I do up on the YouTube page and everything, we also post this show in two different forms, one on just the regular video feed, and then one there's like a podcast feed. I'm not sure which one I want to keep and which one I want to kill. They both kind of get equal views, so I'm like, I don't know. But on either of those videos for this episode, comment on that, and whatever the top comment is, we'll read it in the next episode. So,
ooh, I like that.
So just to give you a little something there. So like and comment on that, and the top comment there that gets voted up, we'll read that on the next episode, talking about this episode. So hopefully it's something like that will happen. At least maybe you're Patreon people. Somebody do it, for heaven's sake. Don't leave me hanging here, everybody. Next month is January 2025, man. We're getting into a brand new year here.
You know, around here, don't we have a different word for January?
Well, here's the thing. You've got your regular Januaries, but we're celebrating January in a little bit more of a different fashion this year. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's Jackie Chanuary, as voted on by our folks over at patreon.com/HMP. They had a whole big old selection there of what they wanted to choose, and man, oh man, they are in good luck because they chose Jackie Chan Hong Kong movies. And we're going to start it out with one of the absolute classics. People talk about the sequel all the time, but I'm going to tell you, I think the original one's better, and we'll get into all that kind of good stuff when next week we're talking about Drunken Master from 1978. Jackie Chan classic here. We're going to get into everything from the whole Wong Fei Hung of it all and stuff. Ooh, I'm ready. This is my month right here. I'm excited. So we're going to be talking all about Drunken Master next week. That is it, everybody. Join us for Jackie Chanuary next week with Drunken Master from 1978 for the absent Sweet Sean's Kovacs from the internet. Bruce Leslie, I'm Anna Porcher, reminding you that the only difference between art and fart is an F.